Hasn't the far right like long existed? Well, you're right for the wrong reasons. It is the left wing's fault, but you're just jumping on right wing narratives and blaming the left. Um, well, the reason why the right wing is going in this fascistic direction is because it's the new progressive, left leaning, independent, grassroots political commentators online. They're the only ones actually teaching people about politics. And the right wing doesn't like that. And that's why they're taking like left leaning people out of context just to demonize them and to prevent support for them. Because corrupt governments don't want people learning about politics and political corruption. Um, I say that perfectly, actually. I've done it as well. So I've said that the reason why the right wing is the left wing's fault is because the new progressive movement, are this new movement that are actually teaching people about politics, political corruption, and teaching people about policies and stuff like that. So, the political actors online are taking like random, like left leaning civilians out of context to prevent support for leftism, to prevent support for like progressive, liberal, left policies that improve people's lives. Like if you think about these right wing actors and these fake centrist actors online, they never really talk about policy. They never really talk about solutions. In debates, they just dismiss the solutions like all the time. If you just look at any right wing debate, you will see that the right wing side just basically dismisses ideas. They never really propose ideas, they just make excuses. Like nanny state. Just because something works somewhere else doesn't mean it's going to work here. Minimal government nonsense when they actually want, the biggest government possible. So the reason why the right is actually the left wing's fault is because we are teaching people about politics. We are teaching people about corruption. So all these political goons online are basically all jumping on the less hate, left leaning people, liberal people, progressive people bandwagon because they're being willful idiots in doing the corrupt government's propaganda. And all their propaganda only goes to serve the most far right wing parties possible. Whether it's not telling the truth of immigration, where they're the biggest cause of immigration, because the modern day left is anti-corruption, and the modern day right wing are quite clearly pure corruption. That's all they want to do is like austerity, austerity is austerity. They just want to make sure that poor people, middle class people, disabled people, mentally ill people get as little benefits as possible, get little support as possible. And when you try to give them support, they claim nanny state nonsense, minimal government nonsense, just to automatically dismiss the discourse. So it's like this whole idea about the right wing caring about debates is nonsense. So right then, point number two, why we can't debate anymore. Well, not only is it that we're not doing enough to improve people's psychology, we're not doing enough to improve people's emotional control, resiliency training, we're not doing enough to combat bullying, bigotry, and hate in schools, we're not doing enough to combat elitism in schools, intellectual snobbiness, perfect people that are attractive, intelligent, hyper popular. We're not doing enough to teach ethics in schools or at home. We're not doing enough to implement psychology, like I said, in schools, at home, in businesses. We're not really talking about enough politics. Um, so the reason why we can't, so more reasons why we can't debate anymore is because of, the, the the bad faith political actors online basically indoctrinating people and brainwashing people by not giving people the facts and basically doing like scapegoat as an identifying, unifying cause by blaming and like paying attention to all these other people. Doing things like appeal to social frustration, weaponizing the middle class against the lower class, appealing to social frustration. So it's just like they're trying to get us all bickering against each other, and they're making people bigoted, they're making people hateful. They're normalizing bullying, bigotry, and hate. So then more and more people then are being radicalized to be openly bigoted, openly racist, openly hateful, and then that's triggering the reactionaries on the left. And then they end up using like calling civilians fascist or Nazi when Nazis were fascists. They were in control of a government. If you're going to be a fascist, you have to be in control of a government. You have to be a politician. You have to be like in like an administration or something like that. So we can't have debate because the right wing keeps tainting the discourse and manipulating the discourse. So it's not really the left wing's fault for being unhinged, considering that the right wing is trying to make the left wing even more unhinged. If you want to appeal to the far left or the far right, you've got to come to the center left and the center right, because the way it works is you got the if you want to persuade people from the other side, you've got to come to, as I said, the center left and center right. So because the way it works on the political spectrum is you have the far left. So like what I'm doing with my hands now. So I put my hands reaching out to my far left and reaching out to the far right. If you want to travel from one end to the other, what happens is that the further distance you travel, the more gravitational resistance there's going to be. There's going to like keep on pushing you back to the far side. So if you're traveling all the way from one side to the other, as you travel, the more I move my hand, so I keep my right hand at the far right point, and I'm going to move the left point over to the right. But what I do is as I'm pushing my hand, right, I'm also pushing my hand backwards as well, creating like tension in my arm and my hand. And I'm trying to push my hand to reach the other side. But before I even get halfway, the resistance is too much, but then the strain on my hand is too much, and I have to go back to the end. So you can't persuade the other side by being too far down the other end. But both ends, but one specific end, my right hand, of the spectrum is purposely trying to antagonize people on the far left. And they don't actually want to bring the far left to the center left or the center because they want there to be bad discourse. And this is part of the reason why we can't debate. So most leftists, especially the political commentators, are already center left anyway. So what you do then is when you bring yourself to the center left and the center right, so I've moved my hands now where my hands were out beyond my shoulders. Now I push them to the center left and the center right position, which would be my left knee and my right knee since my legs are crossed. And then my nose would represent the center point. Now, when you bring people from both sides of the spectrum to the center left and the center right, when you try to travel from that center left point to the center right point, because there's less distance now to travel, the resistance is far less. The resistance is practically nothing now because the distance is so short. And you don't have to reach all the way to the other end, you just have to reach the center. And now I can move my hands from my knees to my chest, and I can keep on going back and forth and back and forth. And because we've brought everybody to the center left and the center right, it makes it easier for you to travel and to persuade the other side, for you to travel to the other side to appeal to their reasoning, appeal to their logic. But one side has no intention, right side, has no intention of actually meeting us in the center right. They want to taint the discourse. So don't fall for it when you see these people on the right that are having debates, and listen to the debates, and you will see them dismiss all ideas. Free healthcare, free healthcare, dismiss. Hiring the minimum wage, dismiss. Psychology in schools, dismiss. Critical thinking in schools, dismiss. Gender in schools, teaching anti-discrimination in the schools, dismiss. They dismiss, they dismiss, they dismiss, because they don't actually care about dialogue. They just care about propaganda, misinformation, or disinformation, which is the intent to deceive, like manipulating information, distorting the facts, distorting the truth, in order to deceive and to manipulate the populace. And as long as one side keeps on tainting the discourse and poisoning the discourse, we cannot have debates. And the discourse and the political divide in the UK and America isn't going anywhere until that one side stops being bad faith, because they commit to being antagonistic to so-called woke people, what I call reactionary leftists, the neutral name if to call them if you don't want to be a don't want to be a dick, right? Don't want to be um, the end of a broomstick, or I don't know, doorknob. So just like, we're not going to have debates if you keep on antagonizing the far left, and the far left might, or the reactionary left might be is being reactionary because they keep on being antagonized by the right. And so I've gone into, I can't remember what I went into first. So I've gone into the second thing that I went to, is why we can't have debate and why we can't have dialogue anymore. Because one side is clearly tainting the dialogue, is tainting the debates and the discussion. So we can't have like calm and reasonable debates, because one side is being antagonistic to the other side and taking the other side out of context. So until we get rid of dishonesty, right wing, and right wingism, and and it's just like, what you need to understand is these political actors now are kind of doing the government's propaganda. They're kind of doing all the topics that they cover. All, it's not a coincidence that every single one of these right wing contrarians. It's no coincidence that they just in debates is all they do is dismiss ideas. That's not what I was going to say. I think the video might be coming to an end because I'm making too many mistakes. I can't forget what I was talking about. I must have looked at something or distracted myself by looking at something, and then I forgot where I was. Um, why we can't have discourse. One side. It was something to do with manipulating of people. So a notion that we need to get past is that civilians, non-political actors, non-political commentators and politicians, we need to realize that when it comes to the word fascism, that's a word specifically applied to governments, not applied to civilians. So civilians need to come together and need to see that governments are not really on the side of the people. And, the people are separate from the government, and all civilians need to come together and to get away from political actors trying to make us feel as if we belong with them. but we do not belong with them. They do not belong with us. They are trying to deceive, and I'm kind of being a political commentator now, so they are trying to deceive you. They're trying to deceive you. They're trying to divide, and they're trying to conquer. They're trying to separate us and divide us. Right, so that's another lesson, is that stop identifying with these cult leaders online, because they're all cult leaders. They've all got cults of personality. If you go into any right-wing contrarians comment section, just go in, you'll see a bunch of people basically just in a complete and utter cult of personality, just saying how great the person is, idolizing them, saying how much they love them. And we need to stop. Like, where's the thing in society where, DTA, don't trust anybody? We need to stop trusting political actors wholeheartedly and willingly or accidentally putting ourselves in cults of personalities. Civilians cannot be fascists, or that four-letter word that begins with an N and ends with an I. Fazi, Glazi, Fazi, whatever. So stop identifying with political actors. Stop thinking that they care about you. They don't. They will drop you like a dime. It's no coincidences when they do events. They're always they always seem as if they're backed by massive donors with millions and millions of pounds recently, or dollars. So stop identifying with political actors. They don't represent you. And stop pretending that they're one of you. They're not. They are not the voice of the people. They are not. They are selective populists that pretend they are the voice of the people, but they are not. They represent themselves as such, but they are not. And what it is the reason why. So the scenario is. So the scenario is one person is being radicalized, or radicalized isn't the right word, but they're being psychologically manipulated, right? And they're being enabled in discrimination, discriminatory beliefs, denying gender dysphoria, psychological scientific fact, not giving the truth on immigration. What they do is, I'm looking at my right hand, right, and I got this political actor that's listening, a civilian that has listened to propagandists online, feeding into their emotions, feeding into their fear. And then you got this person on the other side, then, on the left hand, where, right then, let me concentrate. So there's another person there. So I'm thinking about another person on my left hand, right? And this person has been radicalized online. They've been manipulated online. They're not being told the truth about immigration, that corruption from other countries is what causes immigrant crises and why they're trying to come into here. They don't teach you about ethical standards. Isn't it isn't it funny how they never teach you about ethics, about laws, rules, and regulations and policies? They never teach you that stuff. So this person then becomes openly discriminatory towards different groups because of the dumb stuff that they heard online about denying psychology and stuff like that, and denying science and not giving people full facts. So this person then says unhinged discriminatory stuff. And then this person then would be considered a reactionary leftist, sees that person regurgitating things that they've heard online, and then that person then says, you're a fascist, you're this, you're that. And it's just this person is clearly has communication problems, and they can't communicate well, and they're just labeling civilians. And I discussed earlier, fascists were in control of the government. Civilians can't be fascists unless they become high up within the government, or they become a political actor or whatever, but it's usually connected to the government. So this person then the reactionary leftists acts unhinged because of the propaganda that the person on the right has been listening to. So that leaning then is intentionally distorting the discourse, because you got these people, another person now on the reactionary left side has gone to college, gone to university, and they've learned about like anti-discrimination policies. Anti-discrimination policies and political type stuff, right now. And they're like anti-discrimination. And then this other person then keeps on regurgitating stuff that they've heard online because they're being misled by not being given the full facts. And then that's all this person on the left did, like the so-called woke people, that I call reactionary leftist. That's all they did was go to school to learn about like anti-discrimination. And then when you have these other people that are being like psychologically manipulated online, they keep on regurgitating this hateful stuff, and then that's going to agitate the center leftist person that just wants to stop discrimination. And then, sometimes you got like another person that would be like a reactionary leftist that might not be going to college or university. It might just be against discrimination and hateful wording. And then they just call you out on it. And then what happens then is these people that have been misled online, they can't take the criticism of them being called out on their bigotry, on their hate, or whatever, like that. So then that's because the right wing is intentionally deceiving them and manipulating them. So this is why it's not the left's fault, right? It's just not the left's fault. That's all we do is learn about corruption, and then our friends and families get radicalized, start saying things how they hate brown and black people coming in from other countries, and they don't care about ethics, and they only care about their own indigenous, like British people. And it's just like, so then these people then, the reactionary leftists, they've lost all their friends and family because of all the stuff that they keep on regurgitating. It's not the left wing's fault for learning about anti-discrimination and wanting to be against anti-discrimination and bullying, which this is going to affect children. Children are being there's stories now popping up where sometimes you got an OnlyFans, like a mother is on OnlyFans. The kids in school finds out, and then because of conservative like misinformation online, the kids then are becoming aware of it, and they're bullying these kids for having OnlyFans models because of this attacking of like OnlyFans. When all these political actors, whether it's left, whether it's right, we're all just playing the game of capitalism. We're all playing or you want to neutralize the language, we're all playing the game of the monetized system. We're all just trying to make ends meet. And then some people get into left-leaning political commentary where they're centre-left, they just talk about politics and improve people's lives. And then other people then resort to what's called the grift, the political grift, or the contrarian grift, or contrarianism, to be neutral. So just like, we're all just, like, we can't all be, like, uber athletes. We can't all be academics. We can't all be theoretical physicists. We can't all be psychologists and doctors and nurses. Some of us have no talent. Like, we're academic. Like, there's been multiple people that get into conservative politics because they flunked out of school, and they're just trying to make ends meet to feed their families. And we're all playing this game of capitalism and the monetized system. And people need to start saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. The game is the game of capitalism. Capitalism without any social democracy. And socialism is never going to succeed. Social democracy is a hybrid system between partial socialism and capitalism. Social democracy is the future. And yet what do the contrarians do? They dismiss that in debates. It's no coincidence that these people that pretend to be pro-life advocates, not pro-life advocates, sorry, mistake there. Oh, what advocates are they? What was I just saying that they're advocates? Free speech advocates. And it's just like they're abusing their free speech rights to spread corrupt governments, propaganda, and disinformation. They actually are the biggest abusers of free speech. They're abusing free speech. They do not care about free speech. If you respect free speech, you will be honest. You would be centre left or you would be centre right. And there is no centre right wingism anymore. We need to let go of that notion where there's still a centre right. In this current political climate, centre right wingism has been destroyed. It's all been replaced with hash brownies. So yeah, it's no coincidence that these people, that's all they do is dismiss debates. They never talk about policy. They're not really about exploring ideas. They don't really care about free speech. Just because like, if they're dismissing all the policies that improve people's lives, obviously they serve the corrupt government. And it's no coincidence that all the things that they dismiss will help you, will help the civilians. And remember, civilians cannot be fascists, and you are not with them. You are not with me. I want to be with you, but I'm becoming a political commentator and I'm becoming a political actor. DTA, don't trust anybody. Don't trust me, and don't get yourself into cults of personality. DTA, don't trust anybody.